It's still good morning. So I'm competing with food. Thank you for such a kind introduction. I had not read the final version of what they had given you. And, you know, I just heard that for the first time. So when I was sitting there, I was thinking, you know, regardless of any of those things, the most important thing on everything that we do at our colleges is, and I think that everybody who's in this room today, I'm pretty sure, otherwise you would not be here this morning, is that we all share a passion for helping change the lives of the students that come to our colleges. We have chosen to be part of the community college mission because we understand the significance that community colleges play in our community. So thank you for what you do at each one of your colleges. And I'm honored that Dr. Tompkins invited me to share with you the journey of prior learning assessment at Houston Community College. And I call it a journey because it is a journey. And just when you think you've arrived to your destination, there's another road that opens up in front of you. So when I was thinking about how to share with you the story of prior learning assessment at HCC, and I look back at the over 6 years that we have been involved with prior learning assessments, and I'm not sure what stage of your journey you might be in. First of all, congratulations for being in the journey. But regardless of the stage that you're in the journey, it is an important component of the completion agenda at our colleges. And so I commend you for making this one of your projects at your college, or that you have made the commitment to look at prior learning assessments in your institutions and looking at ways in how you can enhance that process, stay in compliance, because we all worry about compliance, but allow yourself the opportunity to think out of the box, allow yourself the opportunity to listen to other people within your own institution and among your fellow community colleges across the state or even outside of Texas. You know, our colleges are full of talent, not only in our faculty ranks, but within our staff. And so it's important that we create an environment where everybody can have a place at the table to share their expertise and their views. This new millennium, if you look at companies and businesses, they have learned that the old way of being narrow focused, single discipline, it's the old way. And that's hard because change is hard. So I am going to walk you through the journey of PLA at Houston Community College. But what's underlying of that entire story, that we're still in that journey, because it won't end as long as we have changes at our institutions, as long as we have new people that come to our colleges, new faculty, new instructional leaders, new administrators, new advisors. Guess what? It's a constant learning process. So the underlying theme that I want to share with you is that PLA represents a side of a compliance issue, a side of a completion strategy. It represents also how you do business at your college and how you interact with each other to solve the issues of helping students transform their lives when they come to us. How do we collectively, as a community of practice and of learners and of teachers, how ourselves, what's our role within that theme to become collaborators, and how do we constantly work on improving communication? communication. So I think there's a lot of, we found that we've had a lot of lessons in this process that you can apply to any other project at your institution. Doesn't have to be PLA. But again, there's some elements about how we interact with each other that I hope I'm able to share with you and be the reflective or the takeaway of this. Because I can tell you, okay, this is how the process that we follow. Here's, we put together this group, and then they did this, and they did that. But what I cannot tell you by looking at a PowerPoint that tells you that is the many interactions that happen together. And I've always said the most important asset we have at our institutions is the human capital. And so we have to spend time in developing an awareness of how we interact with each other. That's the most powerful change that we can be involved in to move not only the PLA agenda forward, but to move any other initiative that you have at your college. And change is hard for most people. But how many of you have in your wallet or in your Facebook a page of when you were perhaps a little bit younger? Everybody. Do you have one later on, multiple pictures of your life? And then we look back because we look back at what it used to be. We always want to look back to how things used to be, because we always think that was better, right? So we have nostalgia about the past. But what we don't realize that at the moment that we're posting the new picture of a moment that we were very happy with our families or whatever the occasion is that you're posting at that moment, 2 years from now it'll appear on your Facebook as a memory of what you posted 3 years ago. And you notice that it's change. So we're involved in change every day. So the PLA was a process of transformation. Let me see if I tap this on. Okay. That's it. Okay. I'll work on it from here. Okay. So our PLA process was a journey of transformation, of collaboration, and communication. That's what I hope that you get from here today. And I'll tell you that as you engage in this process at your colleges, you're going to experience the same thing. Now, to what degree you enhance and embrace communication or collaboration, I hope that I have a little bit of an opportunity to help you reflect on how to do that better. Now, this is not supposed to happen to me because I am overseeing the Digital Information Technology Center of Excellence for HCC, right? Anyway. You want to escape from here?
Escape to go to your video?
Oh, no, not yet.
Not yet.
I'm not there yet. No,
okay,
no. Okay. So we had several elements of our PLA journey. Why are all of you here today? Well, in our SACS accreditation, there's one of those sections that says that we have to have a written procedure, right? That's well documented, that everybody knows what it is, that's accessible to your students, right? And so some of you may be assigned, when you're going through the accreditation process, that section. That's what happens to me. That's how I got involved in this project. So at the time, I was the Associate Vice Chancellor of Workforce Instruction. And my Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs was Dr. Charles Cook. So how many here from Austin Community College? Okay. So Charles called on me, since I reported to him, and said, Madeline, please, I think we're going to go ahead and assign you this one. So, like many of you, I knew we had a PLA policy. It was in our catalog. You have yours in your catalog, right? And your advisors knew about it. Your registrar knew about it, right? Now, how many of you have multiple, or for multiple campuses, districts that are large campuses that have multiple locations or multiple colleges? Raise your hand for me, please. Okay. So, HCC has 6 regional colleges, 21 locations. Well, we have 6 regional colleges, 21 locations, and we're adding 17 more for the region. So, in every one of those buildings, we have people. And every one of the colleges had a president and a dean, student services, and a dean of academic, and a dean of workforce instruction, and chairs, you know, all of that. But we were singly, and we still are singly accredited. So when Dr. Cook asked me to look at the policy, I said, well, that should be easy. I know there's a form the registrar's office has. I can go ahead and document. I thought it was going to be like a 3-page document I was going to write, and that's it, and I'll be done with this, and I'll document it according to how SACS. Well, I was in for a surprise. So I asked for forms and then I had somebody, they brought me 6 different forms. And I said, well, there must be a mistake. I looked in the catalog, we have 1 policy. And they said, yeah, but our Southwest College people, they went ahead and they reformatted the form because the secretary over there didn't like the way the font looked, and she changed it. Okay. And how about this one? Well, they added pictures to this one. Okay. Okay. And one of them, it had like 4 different signatures. In one of the colleges, the faculty had to sign it. The department chair, the associate chair, the department chair, the program coordinator, the dean, went all the way. And I'm going like, see, I have a master's degree in organizational management. So it drove me crazy because I'm going like, why does any one of these additional signatures here, it's adding to the value of the process of a student who wants to get advanced college credit, right? Because we do processes according to the way we are structured. So have you found that yet in your assessment of your processes? I bet you're going to find something like that. You know, the idea of PLA is to enhance the process and make it easy for our students. That should be a common value in whatever you're doing. Yes, it has to meet compliance requirements. That's a given. But the added value of being involved in a prior learning assessment project at your institutions, that you should, whether you do it, and we're going to talk about how do you go about putting together a good task force, is that you got to give them a very clear, simple goal. Whatever you all do and whatever you recommend as a result of the assessment of your project, it needs to be easy at the end. So we had a large college system, and then Dr. Cook tells me, you know, all the research from the Lumina Foundation and Gates Foundation says that PLA is an important strategy for college completion. So whenever you're looking at this, find out how we can enhance that. Okay. So, you know, we're a large system. I figure I've already found 6 different forms, so I already knew this wasn't going to be a 2-page project, that I was going to document what we were doing. And I realized, like anything else, you can't get this done unless everybody who's involved at your college with PLA is at the table. They have to have a voice. If you want to enhance the process, if you leave somebody out, you're gonna go back and you're gonna miss an important piece. You know, what's really great about our colleges, again, It's the human capital that we have at our colleges. Just because you're leading doesn't mean that you have to dictate or that you have to have all the answers yourself. The best leader recognizes that they don't have all the answers, but they facilitate bringing people together, and they create a safe space where everybody can contribute, and no idea is a bad idea, and everybody talks about the processes with respect. That's the key. So I went around the college and I sat down one day and I said with Dr. Cook, let me make sure I have everybody who's involved with PLA. Who touches this form? So we went and talked, okay, the advisor, a faculty member, well, first of all, the student, right? Okay, student, faculty member. In some colleges, the chairs, and the deans, the academic, instructional deans, whatever that is at your college. The presidents in some instances. At the district or the system office, it has to go to the registrar. This has to be placed in the transcript. How does it get in the transcript? There is an IT component to it. I need somebody in IT that works with them. Oh, and it affects financial aid. Oh, I need to have the financial aid people here too. And in our case, we had 2 people at district that worked on it in the registrar's office, so one was an assistant, and so we had to make sure both of them were there. And we had 6 colleges. We had to make sure we had representation from all the colleges. And you have to have whoever, if you have a faculty senate, you make sure you have faculty in that room. You make sure you have faculty at the table. Because it's not going to work if you don't. After all, this is instruction. And then the other piece was, where does it reside? Who owns this process at our colleges? Is it the chief academic officer? Or is it student services? Because it's part of advising. All these questions. Sustainability. After you do this, as I said earlier, it's a journey. Guess what? You're just going to start after you do this. So one of our lessons, which I want to share with you, is the lesson of sustainability. Whatever you do, from the very beginning, begin with the end in mind. It has to be a process that's sustainable over time. So I want to go back for a moment and talk about the process of when you put together that task force of all these different people from across your district and your system. What are you sitting there thinking? Well, you know, if I invite so-and-so, they're naysayers. You know any of those? Well, I know we're going to go through this, and I'm going to have such and such person there, and they're going to say they don't want to change it. Can you think of any of these? Right? And then you have the people that you know, if I involve this person, they're going to do a good job about being open, talking about the issues, and walking this through. You got to think about all of that when you put together a task force. So my first advice to you is to make sure that when you put together a task force, a committee that is representative of all the stakeholders, if you have multiple campuses, you got to have representation of everybody. And then you have to select. In our case, we did 2 people. We did by the way, who else touches PLA? Continuing education. Nobody talks about continuing education, people. We had our continuing education instructional leaders in the committee as well. And guess what we did? Our PLA committee was co-chaired by credit and non-credit faculty representatives. That's how we put it together. Sometimes when you do a project, you look back and you go, what could I have done differently to make it even better? And that's something I want to share with you. I just recently went to and it's based on what I experienced. So you know, when you bring a group of people together, the first thing you have to do is that you have to find a way, to bring them together as a group with a common purpose. Yes, you have to give them a clear goal and a clear objective of what's the project's going to be about, what's the outcome going to be. But we're all people. So you've got to find a way to break the ice among that group and build a team. Build a small team. They may know each other, but they have never worked together on a common project. So I recently attended a workshop at our college, and I was engaged in this project and this exercise called the Marshmallow Project. How many of you have experienced that? Okay. So as I was doing that, as I was in the middle of that project, I thought, wow, if I would have known about this exercise when I started the PLA project, this probably would have been one of my first projects I would have had that group do. For those of you who have experienced it, please spare me for a moment, okay? Now, we're not going to do it here because it would take in too much time of what we have today, but I want to at least show you a summary of what this project and actually the history of how it was put together. So for us, there were a lot of things there that were very true. You know, we call prototypes sometimes of our colleges pilots. How many of you have a pilot project at any of your colleges? Right? Many pilots. Okay. For PLA, we didn't do a pilot at the college. We took our time. That group working at the process. And so, as I mentioned earlier, these were the stakeholders we identified at HCC that were going to be part of the process. But at one point in our discussions, when we were talking with the chairs about the process, somebody said, well, you know, I know that we had that form, but I got to ask Millie. And I said, why do you have to ask her? And he said, well, actually, you know, I signed the form, but she's the one that processes it at my department. And I go, oh, for how many others is that true in your departments of the faculty members and the deans? And a lot of people raised their hands. So I said, oh, we're missing people in this team, because the people who were signing the form were not necessarily the people who were interacting with the student, providing that advising, that information. And you know, remember, one of the first objectives we wanted was to make it easy for the student. So it was important that we had those people in the room telling us what wasn't working of any of those processes. So the story in this project about the executive assistant, think about those people that you may not think automatically need to be part of this process. So when we put together the task force, this is what I told them. We selected 2 chairs, and I told them, assess what we're doing right now, and your outcome needs to be recommendations to make the PLA process at HCC easy to follow, easy to understand, and easy to access. That's it. That's all I told them. They looked at me and they said, that's it? And I said, yeah. That's all I need you to do. Whatever you do everything needs to pass that qualified statement. While we were doing that, I realized I was going to take resources, dedicated resources to doing this at our colleges. Because I mentioned to you, Dr. Cook told me, here, Madeline, you do it, right? But I already had a full-time job, right? So how could I do this well? I knew I couldn't do it well at an institution this large unless I had resources. Somebody dedicated to moving the team along and keeping me current of what was happening and letting me know we're reaching, you know, an obstacle and we need you to intervene. So At the same time we started in this journey, we started looking for grants, and we were fortunate to secure a grant with the Kresge Foundation. That grant allowed us to fund a full-time district coordinator for PLA for 3 years, and also we used the grant to pay for our partnership with CAO, which also provided part of the training that we established later for our advisors. So the grant was an $800,000 grant. Advanced college credit was one of the elements, as you heard on my bio, that was part of that. The outcome of the grant and of our process was that we were able to produce a physical prior learning assessment manual, which, by the way, becomes obsolete the moment you print it, right? A website to go with that. Marketing components, flyers, posters, brochures that need to be designed, that need to be printed, that need to be distributed over and over and over again. Training materials for our advisors. 6 colleges, I mentioned how many locations. Thank God I had a director, because we had to put together a calendar to go and repeat that at every one of our sites. And then we knew that grant's going to end. How are we going to do training at the end? 2 things. As an administrator, I got to find a way to make this position a permanent position at the college in our operating budget. 2, I need to use some of our resources, which we do a lot of learning online for our staff and our faculty. So while I had the director there, I went and talked to our people in video production for faculty training, and we've actually created a module for PLA that is done online. And we did the production of that with that grant. What were the enhancements of this process, of this group? What were the outcomes of what we can speak to today? So we went from 6 forms to 1 single form for the district. Can you imagine the collaboration discussions that we had in many, many, many meetings? I call them crucial conversations, because nobody wanted to change their own, or we missed something. The prototype piece, remember I said, you know, process improvement requires you to reevaluate. It doesn't matter how good you design something. It doesn't matter. Leave your ego somewhere else, because it's going to change. There's something you didn't think about. So we implemented it, and then somebody at one of the colleges said, well, the form doesn't quite meet the need of this student. We missed something. It's not possible. We had all these PhDs and master degree people in a room. We know how to design PLA. How could we have missed something? We did. So we had to go back. And people will come to me and say, you know, they want to change the form. Okay, what is it that needs to be changed? Let's talk about it. So now I'll bring the group again together. Does it address that need? No. Okay. So is there a value to add that to the form? Yes. How can we do it without creating another form? Where will it fit the best? All you have to do is facilitate. The answers will come. So just when you think you have something resolved, is my point to you, is in this process, just remember that something's going to change. And it's okay. It doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It doesn't mean that the team missed something. It just means that we're working in an environment that is so fluid, that things change. The manual became a resource for training for our advisors, for our faculty, for our new chairs. How many of you hire new faculty every year, full-time or part-time? Okay. And how many times you've heard, well, I didn't know that you could do that. Nobody told me that we had a PLA. Nobody told me that. They didn't ask me. They didn't ask me my opinion about it. Okay. So that happens. We have to constantly find a way. In the fiber of your institution, there must be some kind of training elements, I hope, for your faculty, for your staff. Identify where are those points that you can leverage training for all the critical stakeholders. and talk to whoever the person is that owns that process of training, and sit with them and make the case as to why it's important that this is embedded as an onboarding process for that person or that position. We had a lot of students, this has been a 6-year process. So we noticed that a lot of military students were coming back, and I'm sure you've experiencing that. They come to us with training. Many instances similar to the learning objectives that we teach at our colleges. And they're coming to those same programs. They need to go to work. So we found that we were able to do a solid military crosswalk with WECM because of the College Credit for Heroes project, which also was started during this time. Remember I said that we had 2 co-chairs, credit and non-credit. Guess what happened? People were talking to each other. So the CEU faculty was talking to the credit faculty finally. They were in the same room together. And they realized that the perception that they had in some of those programs was inaccurate. That actually CE was a great pathway for some of their credit program. It was a low-hanging fruit of recruitment for people who have already demonstrated aptitude, interest, and dedication to a particular field that could then be transitioned into the credit programs. So we worked on creating internal articulations from CE to college credit by looking at the syllabi, by doing the crosswalk of the learning objectives, and then it became also a recruitment tool. And then we had the most difficult part of this PLA process, which I think it's where most of us get hung up. It's the portfolio piece. So the portfolio piece, we found that if I'm a business student and if I go talk to Mr. Smith at this campus, Mr. Smith is going to go ahead and give me credit for my portfolio. But if I take that portfolio to one of my other campuses, to this one over here, Mr. Jones from the same discipline told me I couldn't get credit. Again, this were real stories. I don't know if that happened. That probably never happens at your colleges, right? And so I started asking the question, what's the difference? So I'd ask I will ask one person, why would you give credit to that student? And how about you? Why didn't you give credit? Well, I'm not sure it has the same rigor of my classes. Okay? I don't know where he or she took that experience. So, anybody else could have done that portfolio for him or her. I don't know that he actually created all of that. So I realized that, and then I look back at SACS. SAC tells you that you have to have a process that is founded on sound academic principles, right? So I realized this was actually a pretty hard area for us to accomplish standardization or a common ground until I discovered learning counts and CALE. So we got exposed to learning counts at the very beginning of learning counts. So we went through that journey with them. The problem with learning counts at the time was that it was $500 to do the entire portfolio. So I share with the CALE partners, that's never going to work at a community college. If I'm going to a private university, there might be value for me to spend $500 and do a portfolio and save, maybe $1,500 for a 3-credit class. But at a community college, my students can't afford that. So they're going to rather take the class than go through a portfolio process. That was the reality of economics at a community college. Since then, they had the Walmart scholarships. And we were one of the first colleges that had the Walmart scholarships. Still, when they saw the sticker of that amount of money, it kind of scared them away. So Learning Counts has gone through a process of evolution, I call, in terms of the pricing structure that they have for the portfolio assessment. But then we had our faculty, some of our faculty go, because they still were saying, well, I don't know how they do that. So we realized, because we had that grant, that we were able to pay for some of our faculty members to become evaluators for CALE for portfolios. Once you do that, once they go through the process and they're an evaluator for CALE, they come back and they tell the faculty, I'll take that portfolio. You should take that portfolio, because let me tell you what they had to go through to put that portfolio together. So sometimes it's okay to wait and delay something. If you think it might be the best idea, okay, just because it worked at HCC, just because this is our prototype, it doesn't have to be exactly the way we did it. Your marshmallow project might be completely different than ours, okay? So the fact that we did it this way doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. My point of having the marshmallow experience of that project is that I hope that you do something like that with your team, and that you realize that because this is the way it worked at ACC, at my college, I gotta bring the people together to see what kind of marshmallow structure for PLA you're gonna build at your college that works in your institution. Sometimes I think of benchmarks and I go, well, in order to be a benchmark, everything that was happening at that place has to be happening at my place. And not two colleges are the same, right? So, and it's okay for us to be different. That's why when I asked my team what was the outcome that I wanted from that process, I told them that I wanted it to be, you remember what that was? Easy to follow, easy to understand, and easy to access. Now, that's your marshmallow project. That's the structure you got to build at your colleges. What it looks like, do you have a manual? Do you have a website? I don't know. That's what worked for us, because we were thinking of communication pieces. So what we ended up at ACC is what we called 6 methods for PLA. Remember, we had to explain this to a student. We had to explain this to the advisors, to the program chairs. When we talk about PLA, everybody says, we have 6 ways of PLA, and these are our 6 ways. Now, underneath each one of those, there's a lot of processes. Another thing we did in our manual, and you will see it, hopefully you'll go to the website, is that we map the process. Because we know people are visual, and that a picture sometimes is 1,000 words. And for our students, if I show them the picture, here's where you're at, keep going through that map until you get to the end. Same thing for training. So every one of these is mapped out. That took a long time. But we knew it was worth it. And now something's changed, so we're getting ready. So anytime you change it, you got to go back to those process maps, and you got to change it, and you got to update it on your website. This was what happened at ACC with PLAs. So we went from about 1,800 PLAs when we started the process, you can see, to about 2,800. And we had a fluctuation there at one point. And I'll explain what happened. Remember transformation, and remember I said change happens? So change happened at ACC. And change is still happening at ACC. It was called restructure, reorganization, and this day we call it transformation. So at the very beginning, I told you that it was important that whatever you do, you create a process with sustainability. So our takeaway, what I want to share with you is, whatever you put in place, think, if we were to change in the future, where do I need to embed this? Again, that's going to be very important in terms of how you prioritize it, because we prioritize training. We're going to do this, and then we'll train everybody. So my takeaway is that training had to start at the very beginning, because everybody has moved. Everybody's cheese have been moved. Okay, I'm not the AVC of workforce anymore. Somebody else is taking care of this somewhere. And of course, I can't let it go. So I'm worried about this baby. So I went back to the academic, my chief academic officer, and I kept saying, who's taking care of this? Who's taking care of this? And so I call a couple of people and say, I'm not. Somebody else said, oh no, they haven't told me that I need to. So I'm worried because I have this thing here, orphan, I feel is orphan, right? But you know, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be assigned a project to make sure that you take leadership of that. Everybody is a leader. If this is something important for our students at our colleges, and you know there's an absence of leadership, of assigned responsibility. Well, that's not my job. Oh, that's not my job. That used to be such and such job, but they left. So I don't know who's doing it. It's not me. You know, we kind of stay away from that. I got plenty to do, but this is important for our students. So if we're really dedicated and committed to our students, and you see something in your college that has an absence of leadership somewhere because of changes, transitions, somebody left, they're out sick on an FMLA, and somebody forgot about that, step up and say, you know, I'll shepherd this until you all decide who to give it to. But it's too important. Have a dialogue, or bring it up to somebody's attention and say, do you have somebody that you have in mind to take care of this? So don't wait. And whether it's PLA or anything else, do that. It makes our colleges better because it's not about our job. Our job is to make things better for our students, no matter what it is. So there's a piece of paper on the floor. I'm the college president. I'll pick it up. Do I pass it by because, oh, that's not my job? It's an experience for the student, passing by and seeing their college that way. Just, you know, I wish, have initiative. And I know everybody here has that initiative. So we had transformation. I'm sure this has happened at your colleges. Change is constant. You know, change is messy at the beginning. It's very messy at the beginning. Then it gets a little bit bitter as you go through it. But at the very end, once you're through the entire change, the messiness and all of that, at the end what you have is something gorgeous. So just remember, this change is worth it because it'll be something good for our students at the end. So embrace change. Make it part of your fiber of who you are, that you embrace change. Learn to adapt. Bless you. In this millennium, we have to learn to adapt. I'm trying to adapt to Mac. I'm a PC user. I'm trying to adapt to Mac, and I promise I'm going to at least be able to know how to navigate through a Mac workbook. Because it's all around me. I can't escape it. I can deny it, but it's around me. So we have to learn to adapt. Plan for long term. PLA, plan for somebody or somewhere in your institution, how can it be sustained? Change is not a solo process. It's not done in isolation. It takes a lot of participants to make it last and to make it work well. Think of everybody. The more people, I know sometimes we think, oh, well, we just want a small group of people, because if we involve everybody else, we'll never get it done. It's too important, because you're going to work harder at the end. You may think you're advancing and that you have the checklist done, and you have not accomplished that in the long term for your institution. And then communication. Boy, have we learned on this one. Because during transformation time, things change, you move. And so we've missed the communication process. That piece of training, of embedding it in the fiber of your institution, of every single training piece of onboarding of people, it's important. We had that lesson at our last presentation. We had a new chair, and I'm talking as part of the panelists, and somebody says, well, I didn't know we had that. I'm going like, I've been at this project for 5 years. And there's still somebody who said, I didn't know we had that. Check, and we're still learning that. So don't feel bad. That's going to happen. what's important is how do you deal with that? When somebody tells you, I didn't know about it, it's because something's missing in that communication piece, and you have to go back to the design process, and you have to say, what can I do better so that I don't have that many of those? And then you ask her, since when have you been a chair? Okay, so what kind of onboarding process do we have for you? Well, I went to this program, but that wasn't included in there. Okay, then I need to make it part of that so we don't miss the next person that goes through that process. Repetition on PLA or any change is critically important. Be redundant. If there's a faculty conference or convocation at your colleges, make it one of the presentations every single time. If there's an advisors, if your advisors come together, get in there. Find every area of communication that those stakeholders have. And don't assume that they understand. Do an exercise so that they actually can show you that they know how to explain PLA. Here are challenges, and I know we talked about them for a little bit when we were talking about. The objective, our portfolio was an issue. I do recommend that you look at CAO. It did help us create an independent process of assessment of portfolios and a common language among our instructional teams to be able to understand that this wasn't something that was objective anymore. And I had somebody who said, I don't want to give it because I don't know how to give it. I don't feel comfortable. But if you give me a set and a criteria that I can follow, I will do it. I just don't feel I have a criteria. It's too subjective. So take the subjectivity out and find something that meets the compliance and that they feel comfortable with. You're in a large institution or in a small institution. The larger the institution, the more resistance to change you're going to have, because this is not how we've done it before. It's working. Why do we have to change that? So you're going to hear all kinds of arguments about it. Training for sustainability. When you have organizational restructures, it's going to change who's responsible for this. And you have to have a designated office. That's one other takeaway from us. You have to have a designated office for sustainability. Now, where do you put it? Who's in charge of it? That's for your head of instruction or your head of student services to talk that and decide. You just need to know where does it reside. Regardless, both areas have to communicate. It's a matrix. This is a matrix process between advising and instruction. Our future plans. We're going to, as you can hear, we're embedding PLA as a part of our Advisors Training Academy so that it's repeated every year, that when they get onboarded, and we're going to do, that they learn PLA, how to explain it. We're going to do refreshing training for them every year. We have an Instructional Learning Academy, and we're including that there. We're enhancing our marketing. We are putting in our budget for a designated person, carry that grant to a position. And in our college, we had to talk about that with the academic officer and the presidents, and we're all very supportive of that. You know, your leaders have to understand the importance of PLA. They do. And they have to advocate for that resource. And our students, we got embedded in our student orientation because we may have missed them. You know, they come in different points of entry, different points of exits. Also think about how do you communicate that to them. Posters in your college, flyers somewhere, your advisors training, your recruiters need to know about it. Every place you can think about, on the computer, on your web app, on your screen, on your website. Oh, I didn't tell you. How many of your websites have changed over the last 3 years? Okay. Remember that. It's going to change. I was so upset when they changed our website because I had designed the best website for PLA. I had even gotten a call from AACC about our website. How dare you going to change my website? As long as information is there, I just said, okay, let me put that behind me. It needs to be easy to follow, easy to find. I need one of those easy websites that I can tell students, accs.edu PLA. Of course, I have that issue of PLA. Students don't know what prior learning assessment is. That's our terminology, but that's the best we have right now. So think of sustainability and think about how you make this permanent at your colleges. And lastly, again, it is a journey. There's not a beginning, and there's going to be a beginning, which is when you make the decision. Involve as many people as possible. Have an exercise of collaboration. Be redundant on your communications about PLA, and foster the collaboration between all of your parts of your institution, because PLA is important for our students. We must do this. We must do it right at our colleges for them. Thank you for allowing me to tell you the story today, and I hope that you have some takeaway for your colleges, that this was helpful to you.